Good morning, Finance and Admin. It's a beautiful fall day to govern. It is, in fact, Thursday, October 12th, 2023. It is 9:30 a.m., and I am going to call this meeting to order. As we gather this morning, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of our committee and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the First Nations. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. We are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Ms. Wilson, has roll call been taken?
Yes, Chair, roll call has been taken and we have quorum.
Thank you kindly. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? I see none. Could I have an adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on September 18th, 2023, please? Moved by the member from Broodnell, Lindock and Raglan, seconded by the member from Laurentian Hills. Were there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Wonderful, thank you. And at this time, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Belmore, who will introduce our delegation.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. Today, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our benefits consultant from Cowan, Anne-Marie Nevins. Anne-Marie brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to our organization, and I'm pleased to welcome her to our committee to present about our Municipal Benefits Committee, or MBC. As we all know, benefits play a pivotal role in attracting and retaining top talent, while also ensuring the well-being of our employees. Anne-Marie understands the intricate landscape of benefits and has a proven record of accomplishment in helping organizations like ourselves design and manage comprehensive benefits packages. As the CAO will speak to in his report shortly, and in line with the county's strategic plan for shared services and resources, the MBC is a prime example of how the county and others can work together for a greater benefit. With that, I'll hand the floor over to Anne-Marie for her presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Belmore, and welcome to the County of Renfrew.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Greg, for the introduction, and thank you, everyone, this morning for the welcome. Cowan is the group benefits consulting firm that works with the Municipalities Benefit Committee, and we are the advisors and the advocates for the members, the advisors on their group insurance plan, and their advocates with the insurance companies. So I was asked this morning to come in and give a presentation on the advantages and the benefits of this Municipalities Benefit Committee. And I'm conscious that you have a full agenda, so I'm trying to keep this presentation short. I will stop after each slide to ask if there are any questions. I find that that's easier than holding questions until the end, and then sometimes people say, oh, what was that question I wanted to ask? So after each slide, I'll pause and see if there are any questions. So this is the agenda for this morning. And these are the items that we are going to touch on. So the Municipalities Benefit Committee was created in the 1990s by a forward-thinking group, and those are the municipalities that are, the organizations that are highlighted in gray at the top, by a forward-thinking group who understood the advantages of having a large group of employees covered under a group insurance plan versus each individual municipality being on their own. And at the same time, they were pooling organizations that had similar objectives and similar values. This concept is not new. There are lots of association-type plans or Chamber of Commerce plans for smaller groups. One of the distinctions with the Municipalities Benefit Committee is that each municipality has their own plan design, so they can tailor their plan design to meet their local requirements. The original four also understood the purchase power and flexibility that they would have as a larger group. So over the years, additional municipalities and now some municipal organizations have joined the plan. There are now 17 members under the plan, and there's 902 employees as of last count that are insured under the plan. Some of those include retirees at some of the municipalities. So what have the Municipalities Benefits Committee drawn from this association? So there's plan design flexibility. Small municipalities, and there are some that are very small, that only have less than 5 employees, on their own, they would most likely have a restricted plan design offered by the insurance company. So you're a small organization, this is what we offer to small organizations. Whereas being part of this committee, they can say, we would like to duplicate what this municipality is offering their non-union employees, and that's doable. So there's lots of flexibility. There's reduced liability for errors. The insurance companies recognize that this is a large group, and yes, the insurance companies have made exceptions because everyone is human, and sometimes there are data entry errors that occur, whether it's for example, salary updates that are missed that can have a potential impact on claims. These are things that have occurred. We've resolved them with the insurance companies and with limited liability. So the insurance company is saying, well, okay, you forgot to adjust salaries retroactive 2 years. We're going to do a retroactive adjustment. No, they'll say, we'll adjust the salaries now on a go-forward basis. And it reduces the liability to the municipality because, for example, if someone's supposed to have a one-time salary for their life insurance and the salary is not kept up to date, and that person were to pass away, on a small group, the insurer might say, you didn't update the salaries, we're only going to pay this amount out, rather than the amount based on their actual salary. So that's an advantage. There are, errors that are easily corrected and forgiven when the group is larger. There's special circumstances flexibility. So some municipalities have had to negotiate some severance packages. Well, there is flexibility to be able to meet those requirements. That flexibility may not exist with, a municipality on their own. And then there's funding flexibility. So and we'll see that on one of the slides, there's funding flexibility that allows options available to the municipalities. Any questions so far on this? Okay, moving to the next slide. So the purpose of the Benefits Committee, the Municipalities Benefit Committee, these bullets are taken right from the terms of reference from the Municipalities Benefit Committee. And the 3 items that are highlighted in bold, so the lower administration costs, the higher break-even points, and the trend factors are the ones that I'm going to touch on this morning, because they sort of have a financial impact. Any questions? No? Okay. Not yet. Okay. So the terms of reference is a document that was prepared by the Municipalities Benefit Committee. A lot of it stems back from the original 4. And it details the purposes. It details how municipalities can apply for membership in the committee, and what happens if somebody decides to leave the Municipalities Benefit Committee. So just some general information on municipalities that want to join. Laurentian Valley's one that joined fairly recently in 2020. Madawaska Valley joined in 2022, so they're recent additions to the group. A municipality will request membership to the municipality's benefit committee, and then Cowan, as the benefits consultant, will obtain the information on their plan design, their current rates, their experience, and then we'll work with Manulife, the insurer at the moment, to determine, is this a good risk to add to the plan or not so good a risk? I can assure you that up till now, there has never been a municipality that's been turned away. The risk has been acceptable, and they've all joined the plan. When a municipality decides to leave the MBC, there are some terms that they have to provide notice to the municipality's benefits committee 6 months before the renewal date. So the group insurance renewal is January 1st. So by July 1st, they would need to provide notification to the municipality's benefits committee that they are leaving as of December 31st. They cannot reinstate their membership for at least 3 years. So if they leave for 3 years, and then they would need to reapply and go through the same process. And municipalities that leave also forfeit the accumulated surpluses in the plan. And I'm going to be talking about how those surpluses are generated a little bit further on. Questions so far? Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. So this slide shows the funding methods for two funding methods that are available for group insurance plans. There are fully pooled benefits, which means that the insurer takes on 100% of the risk. Normally, on a group the size of the municipality's benefit committee, we will see the life insurance and the long-term disability benefits under that fully pooled or fully insured funding method. And that's simply because those are higher risk benefits. I mean, if you're a small group and you're on your own and you're experience rated and you have one life claim of $200,000, it could be devastating. And so even for large groups, you could have 2-3 claims in 1 year. That's why it's fully insured. So the rates go to the insurance company, they keep it, they're responsible for the risk. Now, because of the size of the MBC, the health and dental benefits are funded on a retention basis. So in this case, there's a shared risk with the insurer. And what does that mean? That means that there's greater flexibility on the rates, on the trend factors, and on the plan design. There's lower plan expenses, and if there are any plan surpluses, they belong to the policyholder. So the insurance company is saying, okay, we'll share the risk with you. If there are deficits, we'll recover it through rate increases. But if there are any surpluses, they will go back to the policyholder, in this case, the MBC. On small groups, generally what we see is that all benefits are fully pooled or fully insured. So if for 1 year the experience is running really well, the insurance company will retain those surpluses. It won't come back to the policyholder. Questions so far? Nope, not so far. Okay, so 3 of the items that were highlighted earlier on in bold are administration costs. So I'm looking at the administration costs for the health and dental benefits, which are the benefits that are on that retention funding method. So at the moment, the administration costs are the costs that are charged by the insurance company to administer the benefits. So this is what they charge to administer the health and dental benefits. Currently, it's 11.5% of the health and dental premium. A municipality on their own, that will be 20 to 30% of the premium. So there's a difference in the costs. So right there's a saving for municipalities, and you'll see in one of the next slides what that means. Questions so far? So this is where that impacts when we're talking about break-even points in your claims experience. So with an administrative cost at 11.5%, that means for every $100 in premium that is paid to the insurance company, $88.50 is allocated to actually pay the health and dental claims, and then $11.50 is for the administrative costs. And then when claims exceed that break-even point of 88.5, then the premium rates are adjusted. And when they're lower, when it's lower than the 88.5, then they're adjusted downwards. But a municipality on its own, as I mentioned, their administration costs can be 20 to 30%. Then, there's less money there to pay the claims. So for every $100 in premium, $70 to $80 would be allocated to actually pay the claims, and then there's $20 to $30 for administration costs. And the higher administration costs do not mean that there's more services. It's the same level of services. That's just a way for, the insurance company to make some money, bottom line. So on the retention benefits, the health and dental retention benefits, there's an agreement. And so the insurance company fully discloses in that agreement to the MBC what all the administration charges are. Whereas a fully insured plan with an insurance company, the insurance company does not need to disclose what all their administrative charges are. So there might be some municipalities, because we provide an experience report to the municipalities on how their particular benefit plan is running. So there might be some municipalities that say, well, I'm running below 88.5%. And therefore, I could do better on my own if I went out and got better pricing. But what happens is that once you go out on your own, let's say your experience is running at 82%, and you're saying, well, I could get something better on my own, but on your own, that 82% is already higher than the 70 to 80% that would be available to you as a small group. Any questions? Thank you. So the next slide is on trend factors. So trend factors is the percentage year-over-year increase that health and dental claims will go up from year to year. We have the historical knowledge for the Municipalities Benefit Committee, and so we know that over their 5-year average, claims have generally gone up by 6%. The insurer industry trend is 17%. Dental, the 5-year average is 8%, and the insurer industry trend is 16%. So the insurers are saying, based on our numbers, we feel that claims are going to go up by 17%. Year over year. Now there is some cushion that the insurance companies put in there for in case. The benefit of the MBC is that we have the ability to negotiate at renewal time with the insurance company and say, okay, You're saying 17%, but here's the 5-year average, here's the 3-year average, and here's the increase since last year. And so we negotiate down that trend at renewal time. And that, there'd be limited negotiation ability as an individual municipality on its own with an insurer. Now, when the insurer says, okay, we agree to drop it from 17, let's say down to 12, because we've never had them agree to drop it all the way down to what the average is for the Municipality Benefits Committee, because the insurer always wants to keep a cushion in case of a rainy day. But that difference between the 6 and 12, that's what generates the plan surpluses, which then are held in a deposit account at the insurance company, and those surpluses can then be redistributed to the municipalities. And over the past 10 years, there have been 5 occasions where municipalities, there was enough surplus to fund between 1 and 4 months of premium, and there were withdrawals of those surpluses. So there were surplus withdrawals in 2013, 14, 15, 2018, and 2022. So that's money that then comes back to the municipalities to either help fund, 1 or 2 months or 4 months of their benefit plan. And that option is not really available for small groups in municipalities on their own. Any questions so far? So to sort of wrap up, the 4 original participants of the MBC, had the foresight on the advantages of pooling their group insurance plans and then opening up those advantages to the other municipalities and municipal organizations. And are there any questions?
Thank you, Anne Marie. Are there any questions? The member from North Elgin and Wilberforce, please.
Yes, thank you very much, and through you, Chair, to the presenter. Excellent presentation. I just had a question in regards to becoming a member. Is there a window for application, or can you apply at any time? And how long, usually, from application till approval?
Thank you for that question. There is no specific time that plan members can join. Often municipalities will reach out to the MBC when they've received their group insurance renewal and they're wanting to, maybe look at something else. So it can be done at any time. The review of the benefit plan and the risk analysis might take 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the complexity of the benefit plan and how easy it is for the municipality to pull together all the documentation that's needed and the numbers that are needed. And then afterwards, to do the setup of a new municipality under the plan with the insurance company, that takes another 6 to 8 weeks. So it might be in all looking at 4 months lead time. It has been done in a shorter period of time, but that's best case scenarios, about 4 months lead time. Thank you.
Anything further? The member from Laurentian Hills, please.
Hi, thank you for those slides. They were very easy to follow.
Thank you.
So based on your trend, on what you forecast, the increase, did you find that there was an unusual increase during the COVID years in claims?
After the COVID years. In the first 2020, when COVID hit and everything was shut down, it was hard to get to see the doctor, claims went down. What we saw afterwards in 2021 was, yes, there was an increase. Where we were seeing sort of a delayed increase is more on the dental side. Because even though dental offices opened back up in 2021, some people were still reluctant to go because there was still COVID around. So what we've found now is that, in 2022 and 2023, that's where people have had to do a lot of catch-up on dental treatment. And of course, by then, and it's the same with even on the medical side, if you end up having to delay treatment for any condition, then you're further along in the condition, and so it takes longer to resolve. And so, yes, that's some of the consequences that we're seeing with COVID.
Anything further? The member from Killaloe, Haggerty and Richards, please.
Is there a package that you'll give out today? A handout?
I think, yes.
Thank you.
It will happen, okay. And if you have any other questions about the MBC, feel free to reach out to Greg. County of Renfrew is the chair of the MBC, and then he will loop us in at Cowan, and we can arrange a conference call to review, and answer any questions, because some municipalities may have very specific questions.
Anything further? The member from Abbotston Bromley, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Nevins. Very comprehensive. My question is with regards to surpluses that you were discussing towards the end of the presentation. What's the lag, i.e., just as a hypothetical, that in 2023, that I'm presuming is the calendar year, so that will end on December 31st. How long before there will be an analysis that would say whether there was a surplus generated?
The insurance company produces a financial statement annually, and that's where we know what the exact surpluses are. When we do the renewal, which we're working on now for January 1, we do an estimated, but then the insurance company produces the final numbers, which then Cowan audits. So, for example, for the financial year that ended, the financial year of the plan ends in February. For the financial year that ended in February 2023, there was $75,000 of surpluses generated in the plan. Normally what we'll do is we wait until there's the equivalent of a month of surplus in the plan to then talk to the MBC about distribution. Now we anticipate, because in the past year claims did decrease. We've seen sort of after COVID, 2021 were sort of lower, 22 went up higher, 23 we've seen it stabilize a bit more. So we anticipate that there'll probably be a bit more surplus added to the plan as of when the financial statements are produced in February. I don't have an idea at the moment of the amount. We're doing our own numbers at Cowan, and we'll include that in our renewal report to the municipalities that we're presenting on October 27th.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, supplementary, and it is following on the same train. So if I'm understanding the financial year end, and in this instance, I'm presuming it is the carrier Manulife.
Correct.
So that their year-end financials are made public, made known in February. And if I'm understanding, then typically, I'm presuming as a precautionary note, that there is not some event or series of events or something that might impact thereon. Typically, there's about another month built in, possibly even 2 months before discussions begin about distribution of any surpluses.
Normally, we will have those discussions when we present the renewal in October. So although the financial year ends in February for the plan, the insurance company usually takes 4 to 5 months because there's lag in claims. They have to do audits, so they will produce their financial report 4 to 5 months after the end of the financial year, which Cowan usually gets in the summer. Then we do our internal audit. We go back to the insurance company to flag things that we don't agree with. And then when we present the renewal to the Municipalities Benefits Committee, that's when we also present the financials. So that's
just as a final then, so ultimately what I was trying to refine to was, so ultimately the end of the program year for our perspective is December 31st.
Right.
So it's almost 10 months lag from the time that ends until such time as it is known what the disposition of the surplus deficit may be.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I was sort of going down the same road that the member from AB was, where, so what we're looking at is if we wanted to utilize some of the savings for our budgets, it would be the following year.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it would be for your budget year. So for example, if we anticipated that in February 2024 that there'd be another surplus, and depending what that is, then we would, when we entertain and we do the renewal presentation, we could say, okay, in January 2024, municipalities could withdraw 1 month of premium.
Okay.
So it's always sort of a forward.
Perfect. Is there anything further? Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for your time this morning, and you're welcome. And the drive up, the colors were wonderful, and
Bit foggy though.
up to the town of Renfrew, it was gorgeous and sunny.
Yeah, that's probably Peter's fault.
And then, and then from that point on, then it started to get foggy.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that when I drive back up on October 27th, that the colors will still be just as lovely. Yeah.
Think they'll be gone by then.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks again, Emery.
Thank you very much.
All right. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Kelly for his departmental report, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. So as the Chair mentions, my report starts on page 6. There's one item of information that I'll work through before heading off to the resolutions and the bylaws. So item number 1 is on a municipal shared services meeting that was held last week. So on Thursday, October 5th, gosh, was that last week already? We met with several CAOs and planners and directors of various departments here at the County of Renfrew. They had a treasurers meeting earlier that day, and I believe Mr. Foss has a piece on that in the report. But it was nice to see folks gather afterwards to talk about what we could do collectively as a shared in shared services, while not being led necessarily by the County of Renfrew. We are a partner with all the other municipalities, including Pembroke, so 19 municipalities represented last week, to talk about the future state of our municipalities as we're all challenged with staffing and inflation and budget restrictions, of course. We are seeking to find ways of facilitating discussions moving forward. So some of the themes coming out of that were the concept of a mutual aid for all municipal services, not just fire services, but for mutual aid for, planning, accounting, legal, and otherwise. We've heard examples of this across the country and thought it was a neat idea to explore. We talked about sharing of information in terms of a central repository of studies and reports and thoughts and ideas, and are looking at ways of creating the infrastructure through technology to do this. Many people are using Microsoft Teams. We have some security issues around that, but we're working on a way to almost provide an instant chat to our colleagues amongst municipalities. Hey guys, I have this problem. What's this problem? What's that problem? To really get that language or that communication going between all of us. Of course, we continue to share policies from the county's perspective with our local municipalities, but are looking to our local municipalities to share backwards as well. So again, that central repository will help. A good conversation about legal and sharing of legal services, or at least creating some type of legal framework that we can work together. We all have more and more items of litigious nature that we're looking to share examples of, or at least share that boilerplate language when we get involved in certain tiny legal aspects, let's call them. But moving forward, I think what we've committed to as again, 19 municipalities was to work in smaller working groups on several of these issues moving forward. So that's something that hasn't quite been done yet in terms of that formation, but moving out of today and next week, we'll start setting up those smaller working groups to work on those items of interest. Many municipalities have expressed through job postings more than anything else the desire to hire planners. We're one of them. So how we can work together on developing a planner pool is part of what we're looking at moving forward. So what I've included in your packages today is that the PowerPoint that I threw together as discussion points. By no means are these set in stone, but they are discussion points to get that conversation started last week with your staff that was in attendance. Chair, I'll stop there as an item of information before I go forward.
Thank you. Yes, I think, well, it's fresh. Let's open it up. Comments, questions, concerns? I know my staff were very engaged. Excellent. Yeah, Warden.
Thank you very much. I was present for a portion of it. I stayed longer than I intended, actually, because it was quite interesting. Glad to see there's some progress, because I think it has to, the conversation, however uncomfortable it's going to be, has to happen, and probably should have happened 2 years ago, prior to COVID. However, it was a good initial step, and I liked the frank conversation. And to be blunt, I think there are a number of silos where somebody's going to have to kick the doors down, and it's probably going to be folks in these chambers that have the fiscal pressures when they're looking at budget this year, next year, and the following year are going to be forced with making some hard decisions. So rather than making hasty decisions, some preliminary work on the ground, we should assist with the hard decisions. So glad to see it, and glad to see movement forward. As a chronically impatient person, I think we're way behind, but we'll be more than happy to stand at the back of the pack barking at everybody and asking them to go faster. But good first steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Member from Edmundston Bromley, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on, this can be found on page 17. I don't know what the slide number is, but it's page 17, implementation framework. Just a question on one, and perhaps it's just terminology, but I was wondering why the bar was set at the maximum benefit. I think that there is probably a lot of benefit in between maximum and medium, if not even moderate. And perhaps that was just the terminology that was used in the development of this slide, because I think that this seems at least similar to the kind of kickoff that we engaged in at the, let's call it the southern end of the county, with what we had the local efficiencies group, Arnprior, McNabb, Braeside, Whitewater, Renfrew, GM, ourselves. I think that encompasses everyone. Horton, sorry. Anyway, at the kickoff, it was, this is completely open to every service that the municipality has, because if you already begin to narrow the focus at kickoff, it's not going to do anything but get narrower. So I just wanted to be sure that even at this meeting, that I gather was not with a concrete view towards advancing these things, which begin to open the conversation. But I am just curious about maximum benefit. I think that there is lots of benefit that can be derived that's not going to be maximum.
Sure. It would feel strange to write doing something for the minimum benefit of all. That's really is where I went with that. I think that as we ventured down a lot of these avenues, the time and effort put into determining next steps on, it's called a planning group or otherwise, to do that for very little payoff. And I'll take your point as any payoff would be better than no payoff. I think it would be worthwhile to make sure that we're getting, the maximum benefit out of that relationship, as opposed to doing a lot of work for very little payoff at the end of the day.
Just in follow-up, so certainly I understand that. Ultimately, if it was forecast that the entire initiative was likely only to yield minimum results, then we wouldn't pursue it any further. Ultimately, what I'm suggesting is once engaged in this, then the a la carte menu should include everything. Because once you're engaged on this, there probably are some things where it may not be a major, but in aggregate, they begin to accumulate. From that, I know that we did have just in September at this meeting and at September Council through Mr. Foss's office, we had the charting on tax rates, tax revenues, and I can't remember what the bottom line was between the 52 and change million that is levied by this entity on top of all of the individual 17 municipalities that exist. I'm fairly certain that's going to be north of 6 figures million. And at that point, if you save 2%, it's $2 million. So I think in aggregate, all I'm suggesting is that it would be advisable not to refine the areas that we're going to be looking at as to derive maximum, but that the entire initiative is going to derive maximum, and even within perhaps some of the more incremental areas, in aggregate, they could become some substantial dollars.
Response?
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair, and through you. No, and your point is well taken. I think what they heard that day was no topic was, as far as I was concerned, not worth talking about. You'll note even in the slides, things like even chief building officials. How can we, get a county-wide program for building inspection? Why would we pigeonhole into not thinking outside of this box or staying in our lane, so to speak, as we've used the terminology before. So your point is taken, and I think that's what was discussed, maybe not perhaps fully fleshed out here, but we weren't pigeonholing ourselves. I think that everything was on the table for discussion.
Yes, Warden.
Thank you. And just to add to that, when Mr. Kelly mentions CBOs, it was not intended the county take on any new services, or it was more of how can things happen organically or amongst regional groupings or the whole grouping. So just I'd hate for that to hang around on YouTube for years, that we were interested in looking after CBOs or fire chiefs. We talked about fire services, the difficulty of recruiting fire department volunteers, first of all, and then secondly, the onerous administrative tasks for the chiefs and deputy chiefs now, and is that going to evolve into a full-time position, and can people afford that? Is there a better way of doing it? So the county's not interested in doing fire chiefs as well, at least in my next 2 months. I think, so just to be careful, this was not about expanding what the service menu was offered by the county. It was more to start facilitating the conversations, and if there are shared responsibilities that we have, that they have, like finance or whatever, then we should be talking about those as well. But it was just to start stimulating the conversation, not to expand our scope of operations.
I couldn't agree with you more. And in that vein, I think neighbors, James and I have agreed that we're going to meet and talk about some stuff that we can do together for exactly this purpose. And your point about fire chiefs, deputy chiefs, I couldn't agree with you more. The member from North Elgin and Wilberforce, and then Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richard.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I certainly agree that this is a great initiative, and I'd have to say I think sometimes one of the main challenges we have is getting past the reluctance of our own councils sometimes to explore sharing services with our neighbors. And I think the county has taken a great step forward by hosting this. I also want to recognize the fact that I believe it was in our last D&P meeting where the Economic Development Group, led by Melissa Markwitt, is looking at a strategy that involves collaborating with the other lower tier municipalities. Because again, economic development should certainly expand beyond the borders of our own municipality, because it affects, and any new development, brings in more revenue to all of our communities. So I certainly agree that we need to continue down this path, because there's certainly, I see as an opportunity to become more efficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, tourists don't understand the boundaries of, especially our two municipalities where we collide, and some of the best parts about our area are actually in North Elgin and Wilberforce, like Whitetail and the Bonashir Caves. So it's, yeah. Member from Killu, Haggerty and Richards, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo the same thoughts. This is a great first step, and I think it's a way for us to look to the future. I want to give you an example. In the National Hockey League, all 32 teams have to meet with the commissioner once a year minimum to go over all financial results, all marketing things that they want to do. Everything is above board. I think the educational benefit for all of us to be better, I think, is fantastic. I think this is a great step for us to be educated and learn about each other. I think the big thing, the group that is together, they have to be comfortable to discuss issues, and they can't be protective. And I think that's up to the chair of that meeting to get that level playing field, that we're all in this together. Communication is such a big item nowadays, and I think that should always be capitalized. Communication within the group. One final thought, I think we're only as strong as our weakest link. And to put that on the same footing, I think we're going to be even stronger. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Warden.
Thank you, and that's a great point. Thank you, and I'd just like to reinforce that sometimes we see in the media about the counties being up to something and the counties doing something. Well, we are the county, the 17 of us. So if we take back the same message consistently that the county's not up to something, the Chambers is behind the initiative of ensuring that people work together and try and find solutions, I think that's probably the first step. So thank you to the member for bringing that up.
Thank you. Member for Palmerston Bromley, please.
Thank you, and not to flog the dead horse too many times, but I think that in perhaps echoing both the warden and Councillor Mayville's positions, that was also the conversation at the LEG, and I think that this forum is meant to be the facilitation and the open forum. I know as the province is moving to the Ontario Health Team model, it was constantly identified as a low rules environment, and I would suggest that that is the appropriate thing. The experience we even had in the LEG, I think of the communities that were participating in that, maybe 4 or 5 of them had sewage and water treatment. We don't. That didn't impair or constrain or impede the conversations going on, notwithstanding the fact that we didn't have any of those services. So I think that, it has to be reinforced that this is simply an open forum for the sharing of ideas when you have all of the municipalities, and this one being one of 18, the city of Pembroke, even, there's no reason why they couldn't be participating in some broader discussions. They neighbor directly with Laurentian Valley, so they already have some experience there. I think that the forum has to be such that there are no staff members coming forward thinking that there's something that they're going to put on the table that might be seized upon which may not have been the intent. So there has to be that free and open exchange made available.
Thank you. And further to what the warden said, I think that you're right. We are the county, and it's going to be up to us to go back to our local municipalities and express to our department heads to not build silos around each of our municipalities. Yes.
Thank you. Another phrase I think we can use, there's no hidden agendas here.
All right. Anything further? Then we will move on to resolutions, please. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. To read it to get it on the floor is the Roma Conference. So many of you, of course, in your standing committees have heard throughout the week, and today is no different. So the recommendation on to put on the floor is that the Finance and Administration Committee recommends that County Council approve a delegation request of the 2024 Rural Ontario Municipal Association, or Roma, Annual Conference with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing and/or the Minister of Finance to discuss additional funding opportunities with regards to continuous improvements and modernization, i.e. the Municipal Modernization Fund, building on the success of previous funding streams, and a discussion regarding an opportunity to expand the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, or OMPF, to upper tier governments, and that the chair of the standing committee along with the warden be designated to attend the delegation.
Thank you. I'll ask for a mover and seconder to get it on the floor, please. The member from Deep River, seconded by the member from Killow, Haggerty, and Richards. Background.
Thank you once again, Chair. So, as you've heard throughout the week, the Roma delegations are anticipated to be requested first part of November, mid-November. So we'd just like to get this on the table. So in the past, this committee has been the recipient, or has led the charge through the receipt of the Modernization Fund. We've had 3 streams so far. I forget the actual total amount, but we've taken on things like the IT strategy, the service delivery review, and the planning services review, and other efforts. Part of that fund, I think, it was about $3 million, I think, give or take. Pardon me? Oh, and this building, of course, yeah. Sorry, and the big project, the renovation of this building. So we have come a long way, and I'm suggesting that meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs is to remind him that we should continue with those efforts through some of their funding avenues to help municipalities continue to improve and make use of things they've learned through different strategies. The second part of the resolution deals with the OMPF. If you go back in history, and Mr. Foss is more familiar with the history than I am, but of course the history of OMPF goes back several years, where it was phased out, about 10 years ago to 15 years ago, where the county is no longer a recipient, unlike yourselves, of these funds that help northern and rural municipalities deal with financial pressures. We too, as a municipality, have our own financial pressures and are northern and rural. And I think it would behoove us to present a case to the minister to say that a portion of the OMPF, the $500 million that gets allocated to those communities, should be apportioned to counties and upper tier governments as we deal with increased costs to deliver the services on their behalf in many cases. Part of the background information is also for this committee's knowledge. You'll see it at County Council through the individual committee reports. There's a list of delegation requests through the individual standing committees. There is one missing because of the timing of this agenda, and the amended motion on Tuesday at the DMP meeting was a request to meet with the Minister of Tourism, Sport and Culture to talk about the funding shortfall with a regional tourism organization, OTO, Ontario's Highlands. So that will be added to the list of delegation requests going forward from County Council. Thank you, Chair. That's this portion of the report.
Thank you, Craig. The other one that's missing from the list, in the body of the resolution, you mentioned the Minister of Finance, but Minister Bethlen Falvey isn't in the list.
Thank you, Chair, and to you. What we've not said, we could identify it as that in parentheses, we've put the names of the ministers, but as we've learned, the minister changes quite often.
Yeah.
This provincial government, so we've just left it to the minister of. But we can update it to county council, suggest in brackets, Minister Bethlen Falvey.
But the Minister of Finance isn't in the list.
He is the minister. It is in the resolution, or the Minister of Finance.
But not in the list. That's where
These are the list of the ones that have
Yeah.
already gone to standing committees this week.
My apologies.
No problem.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't picking up what you were putting down there. All right. Is there anything on this resolution? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, member from Amiston Bromley.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Very much in support of the first item within the resolution, very much opposed to the second item in the resolution. In fact, as Mr. Kelly had identified, Mr. Foss is familiar, so just yesterday I had an opportunity to corner Mr. Foss. And he advised that, in fact, his employ with the County of Renfrew was partially driven by the advent of the Community Reinvestment Fund in 1998, the year that Mr. Foss commenced his employment here. It was a result of pretty significant realignment of the funding of services in the province of Ontario. At that time, in 1998 dollars, it was something like $3 billion was changed over. Largely that was driven by a provincial government that had ran on successfully as part of their mandate was to gain more control over education financing. In order to do that, it led to some substantial upheaval that reverberated probably for the next 10 years, if not longer. Ultimately, as I look around the room, I'm sure Mr. Foss is the only one that was here at the start of that. The warden would have experienced in his first term here some of the reverberations that I had discussed. Ultimately, in response to the province taking that, they downloaded substantial services onto the municipalities. When they did that, they also allocated what they identified was that there was tax room, tax points, if you will, that were made available to communities, to municipalities. Most of those were being experienced at the upper tier. However, as Mr. Kelly had noted, in addition to those tax points, the Community Reinvestment Fund, which was the precursor to the Municipal Partnership Fund, was stood up in 1998. Ultimately, in 1998, there was $500 million allocated to the Community Reinvestment Fund. Remember that number, $500 million. In 2001 and again in 2003, the auditor for Ontario identified that this was not revenue neutral. It was not meeting the target of what the province had intended, which ultimately led to the conversion into the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. Through this, once again, there were, and I know that Councillor Sweet served on that Who Does What committee. So a subsequent provincial government undid quite a bit of that. I think the largest things that were put back up onto the province were the benefits component to the what is now community services, Ontario Works, Ontario Disability Support, housing, etc. And once again, and I have sat in the room, and many of the people here too will have sat in the room, when the province would constantly remind us about the benefit that we were receiving from the uploads that they took, even if it was when it was 10, 15 years after they had uploaded. They were still given to reminding us of the benefit. Ultimately, in 2008, I think was the last year that the upper tiers received partnership funding, and it was again because most of the uploading benefit was realized at the upper tiers. And I know Warden Emo and my predecessor as the mayor of Admaston Brumley would be discussing with me by times early in my municipal career that is what the county was keeping a very low tax rate, is to be able to pass on some of those realized savings that the upper tier was receiving to allow room for the lower tiers. Ultimately in 2015, so it ended, the upper tiers ended in 2008. Ultimately, this is mostly converted now into a program for rural and northern. 90% of the funding that is going through the Municipal Partnership Fund is allocated to rural and northern. I think there's about 10% is allocated to Southern Ontario urban. I don't know what the definition of those are. Ultimately, I will come back to that number. So in 2015, they identified, and AMO played a pretty significant role in that. There is from the Ministry of Finance, I have about a 30-page PowerPoint presentation whereby it was intended to phase, not out, but down the OMP fund to $500 million. This is in 2015. Remember, in 1998, it was $500 million. So it ultimately did get up as high as $515 million. It's been frozen at $500 million from 2020. We're all very familiar, we've discussed this ad nauseum in this room, what the CPI/inflation has been post-COVID. So when it is frozen at $500 million, when in fact it should be indexed, it has actually gone backwards. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up, Madam Chair, is it's frozen at $500 million. And I think it unwise to be seeking that we seek to dilute even further. At this point, I think I have read somewhere there's about 100 municipalities no longer receive partnership funding. If we open that door a breach, I suspect that it will not be open a breach. And I do not think it is it may certainly be the interests in this corporation, but I think it would be at the expense of lower tier municipalities here in the county of Renfrew, but right across Ontario. I suspect that if we wish to do this, the very first step would be to seek to have this indexed as the Canada Community Building Fund is, rather than to dilute a frozen fixed envelope of funding available through partnership funding, because there's only one source if that is diluted, and that is those who are receiving it currently. So I certainly don't want to abrogate any further discussion on this, but I do wish to introduce an amendment at the appropriate time seeking to excise that second component.
Okay, and I don't disagree with you, but I'd like clarification from the warden as the only person that was in the room. Was the OMPF not instituted with the partial download of the OPP? Was this not to help rural municipalities with their policing costs? And if we go down that road, then obviously the county doesn't pay for policing. That's kind of the road I'm going down.
I'll be honest with you, I don't recall, because there were so many conversations at that time and so many marketing campaigns and delegations, and I was part of them at various levels. So I honestly don't recall. I was just trying to pick back through my memory. I do know that, it was meant to be a funding mechanism to assist municipalities because of the additional costs that were downloaded at the time. But I don't recall what the 2 or 3 driving themes were, other than we needed money, and the province was dumping stuff onto us. So that's all I can recall.
So the timing is just suspicious because that is when the OPP were downloaded. But also, some of the roads that were taken care of by the province are now county roads, so that's interesting as well. Member from Deep River, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would tend to agree with the member from Edmundston probably on a few of his points, because I believe when the county, and I don't have the exact dates, and I apologize, but when the county no longer received OMPF for provincial funding, whatever the name was at that point in time, there was significant uploads. So there was some significant savings to the county, and I don't know if Mr. Foss can do those calculations, but there was an offset to that. And also on the policing costs, certainly between 2010 and 2014. So in 2010, the funding formula for OMPF did have a significant community policing portion to that grant. Between there and potentially 2014, 2015, that was removed. And the impact to all municipalities, I'm not sure of, But in 2010, the town of Deep River had close to $750,000 in OMPF. Today we have $314,000. So there's been some significant changes. The most significant OMPF for my community was the removal of policing costs out of the OMPF formula.
See, that would have been my first year, so that makes sense that that would stick in my head for 2010. I think the road that the member from Abbotston Bromley is going down is the correct one. Is this is a fixed fund, and so if the county absorbs some of those monies, it is going to affect anybody in this room. So, you know, if you're at 330 at this point, would you go down to 250? So it's, and I mean, I know from my perspective in Bonnechere Valley, we really rely on the OMPF every year. So it's interesting. So at this time, if there's no, oh, Warden.
Yeah, and I think I'll be honest with you. I was the one that introduced the idea to the CAO in conversation because municipal sustainability has been a question I've been asking for a couple of years, and you know, I think if there is some willingness to consider this, we maybe you know, my friend from Abbotston Bromley mentioned the need to tie the OMPF to CPI or some kind of an annual indexing. So you know, if there is an appetite for that, you know, to change the motion to, or the recommendation to include something along those lines, but at the same time with the understanding that additional funding be added to it to include rural and northern single-tier municipality or upper-tier municipalities. So, you know, I think we can wordsmith it a little bit to get our intent across. I would suspect once we, you know, if this is something we endorse and it goes out through the network, there'll be some support from other quarters, because I know the conversations I've had with people that are concerned about their sustainability. And not to prejudge this, but this afternoon the Warden's Caucus is having a discussion about financial sustainability of municipalities and a refresh of some of our papers. So it'll be, you'll have more information probably early next year on some topics.
The member from Abbotston Bromley, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is only partly tongue-in-cheek. I'm sure the good treasurer is looking forward to his OMERS employment soon to come. But whether he or someone that has experience, I think that it would be actually beneficial to have someone make a delegation here, or perhaps even a workshop, on understanding what kind of trauma was visited upon that relationship between the province and the municipal, which in large instances is a service delivery agent. Because I'm not as familiar with the some of the policing components. I know probably about the first 5 or 6 OMPF allocation notices that we received at Abbotston Bromley. There was those lines that used to tell us how much they were doing for us, in that they were now uploading the prisoner transportation or court security costs. It was detailed right to a certain level. Ultimately, where the intent was, and I guarantee you that $3 billion in 1998 is substantially higher than that now. Ultimately, between the uploading in addition to the OMPF, the intent was that $3 billion becomes revenue neutral, and that each party remains whole. They are simply swapping and trading services, and then the ensuing Liberal government changed a whole lot of those back, to the point that if this were a bylaw, it's been amended so many times rather than repealed and replaced that you're barely capable of finding your way back to the starting point to understand what the intent was. I will say on with respect to the policing element, that in our community, and you've probably heard me say this, I've kind of put that on a back burner, but I would be more than happy for the province to no longer provide me any partnership funding if they would restore picking up the 75% to the residential rate for my farmland. And the reason for that is my current OMP funding in Admaster Brumley is $440,000. I currently raise $250,000 from my farming community, which, as everyone in the room is aware, that's 25% of the residential rate. Formerly, the Ministry of Finance used to provide the 75 points. So I would be more than happy to upload or to refuse the UMP 440,000 if in fact the province was to give us the 750,000 that they used to give us. So ultimately, I am, where it is tongue-in-cheek is whether it would be Mr. Foss, but that turmoil that was visited in the late 90s continues to reverberate and confuse. And I think that it would be beneficial to have some understanding of where we started and where we are. But in terms of this, I would have no issue with the delegation if it were targeted towards having the OMF now indexed. But I would still not support seeking for it to be spread more broadly until such time as there would be a commitment to indexing it.
Okay, I think that's more than a friendly amendment. So did you have an amendment that you wanted to introduce, please?
Yes, my amendment, Madam Chair, be it resolved, or as an amending resolution, be it resolved that the second component of the recommendation, that is, any discussion regarding expansion of the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund to upper tier governments be removed from the resolution.
Okay, do you have a seconder? The member from Killaloe, Haggerty and Richards. Discussion on the amendment.
I'm sorry, could I hear it again? Because I just found a PowerPoint from 2015 that describes the ONPF, so I was just sending everybody an email, so I wasn't listening. I apologize. I was rooting through my cloud looking for this. I knew I had a presentation.
Okay, very quickly for the warden, member from Admaster Bromley.
So understanding what you're saying is, I was thinking about something else?
I was trying to help the meeting progress in a meaningful manner, yes.
In a positive way.
It seems like it's been successful. The amendment is, Madam Chair, that the recommendation be amended to remove the second component, that is, any discussion regarding opportunities to expand the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund to upper tier governments. Be removed, correct.
See, I was paying attention. Okay, and you do have a seconder. Can we have discussion on the amendment, please? Member from Deep River.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my concern with this is the fact that if we all know that, and probably through AMO, that there's, and I might have the term wrong, municipal fiscal framework review, a different way of funding municipalities. I suspect that this issue is going to be part of that conversation. And I think that whether the fund's indexed or whether, whether the fund is unfrozen, whether there's more money, if we can advocate for getting increased funding allocations to OMPF, and then it gets distributed to upper tier municipalities, that's the ultimate goal. So I don't know that completely removing this is the right thing. I think that maybe it needs to be, as the warden suggested, wordsmithed a little bit differently, and that we're advocating for the fund to be increased.
And quite frankly, this is, should we be looking at this email now?
No, it's 30 pages long, I believe, but it's just a history lesson for you.
Okay, perfect.
The ONPF started in 2005, and yeah, it's too complex to try and
and nobody knows how to do the calculation. That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
I think that this is such a big issue for all of us. I'm just wondering if this should be a discussion at County Council. And would the warden have more information at that time?
I can commit to trying to provide more information, yes.
Member from Admaston Bromley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I respectfully disagree, perhaps even vehemently disagree. I understand the nature of the conversation. This is what is before us. But again, now if committee is so disposed as to accept at face value what I'm telling you, the document that the warden has saying it was 34 pages. That's one of the ones I Googled. There's about 3 or 4 if you'd like me to send them to you as well. I'd be more than happy. Ultimately, the challenge here in responding to Councillor Doncaster is it's not just the amount of money, it's the formula. So the formula was set up not for upper tiers, so it's not just even sticking more money in it and now we can spread it more broadly, because now we'll probably have to amend the formula. Even within this document that the warden has supplied, your microphone, by the way, is on, Warden Emo. Fund itself has transitioned to the, and we are familiar with this, the MF, just bear with me, I'm trying to get there, Municipal Financial Circumstances Index, MFCI, which is your assessment per household, the number of households. And I'm fairly certain that there was a significant amount of effort expended into arriving at the formula, what the intent was behind the formula that was not inclusive of upper tier municipalities. So if we're going to go now of saying, why do we add more money and include, that will be imprecise as well, because this is targeted to do what it is doing right now. So and I do want to be careful, but ultimately this is within the purview of this committee, and I am not opposed to that investigation being done, but I think that should be coming forward perhaps for either the Roma conference, or rather the AMO conference next summer, or the Roma conference a year hence, that there's a little bit more consideration given to what it is that we're looking for here. Because this is like my car outside, I can't get it to lift round bales and take them out to the round to bale feeder. That's not what it was designed for, and I want to be very careful that that's not what we're doing if our delegation is to seek to broaden the distribution of the partnership funds.
Okay, so the amendment's on the floor. Anybody have anything else on the amendment? Then I will call for the vote on the amendment to remove that portion. All in favor? That carries. So the original recommendation, I did get a mover and seconder, yes? Good. Okay. I'll call for the vote on the original recommendation. As amended, yes. All in favor? Done. Carried. Thank you. Took a long time to land that plane. And respectfully, Mayor Donahue, if you put a bale fork on the front of that BMW, it probably would lift a bale. It's probably as heavy as your pickup truck. Yeah? All right, and we'll move on to bylaws.
Thank you, Chair. Just making a few notes here. All right, so on page 8, the one bylaw before you, and this is to appoint a treasurer. So the recommendation is that the Finance and Administration Committee recommend that County Council approve that Daniel Burke be appointed as the acting treasurer for the County of Renfrew, and further that the necessary bylaw be passed at the October County Council.
Thank you. I'll ask for a mover and seconder, please. Moved by the member from Broodnell, Lindock, and Raglan, seconded by the member from Laurentian Hills. And a little background, and there was a whoopsie.
Right. Yeah, the dates will be updated to reflect what it says here. So, of course, Mr. Foss is retiring in the next couple months, and it is prudent and necessary that we have a treasurer appointed for the County of Renfrew to do all the things necessary and legislatively. And Mr. Burke, as the finance manager, is well versed in all those aspects and well positioned to be that acting treasurer while the strategy core service delivery update is completed and we determine the next steps for the corporation.
Thank you for that. Discussion. All in favor? That carries. The report as a whole, may I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by the member from Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richard, seconded by the member from North Algona, Wilberforce. Discussion. All in favor? All right. Before we go to corporate services, everybody can take 5 if you don't mind. Thank you and welcome back, everyone. And I know that there are probably tons of people watching for their viewing pleasure. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Foss for his departmental report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My report begins on page 23. Information items. Item number 1, development charges and the draft development charges study presented by Watson and Associates. So in the month of August, Mr. Byron Tan appeared as a delegation to both the Finance Committee and then again at County Council to present the development charges study for the County of Renfrew. Following that meeting, Council directed that staff would distribute that study to all municipalities and give municipalities an opportunity to provide comments and questions and raise issues. And so we've collected all of those, and attached as Appendix 1 is a document by municipality summarizing those comments. We leave that for your information, and we will present these obviously to County Council as well. It is not our intention at the meeting today to make a decision on development charges, but at a future meeting of this committee and of County Council, we would like to bring back this issue and have Council provide direction to us on whether or not we move forward with development charges. I do just want to remind Council that on November the 9th, we have a special meeting dedicated to an update of our asset management plan, which includes really 10-year capital plans and long-term financial plans related for all of the current infrastructure or assets that are listed on our 10-year capital plans. But it certainly ties in also to the concept of what other capital needs that are before us related to growth and the possible options to finance that those growth-related asset items that currently we do not have a financing plan for. So one of the tools available to us would be development charges, and so Mr. Kelly has and I have discussed the fact that we would like Council to hear the presentation on November the 9th and consider all of the options that are available to us for funding our existing infrastructure and assets and our future growth-related infrastructure and assets. And so I leave these questions and comments and concerns for each municipality attached as Appendix number 1. Item number 2, just a note that typically on a monthly basis we bring forward to you a summary of our workload within the Provincial Offences Court, as well as a summary of the backlog of charges that are before us. And just given the fact that we had some early meeting dates in October, we did not have those reports available to us from ICON to be able to present that to you. And so we will update you at the next meeting with data to include both September and October for this committee. Item number 3 at the top of the next page, 2024 budget. So we did receive at the September session approval to move forward with our schedule of budget activities, and so we have begun meeting with each of our operating departments to review budgets for 2024. County Council provided direction where they would like to have the County of Renfrew work as hard as we can towards achieving a maximum limit of a 3% increase in the County of Renfrew levy to offset all of the expenses related to our operating side of the budget. And so we are working hard at that, and we will bring that back, of course, to all committees in January of 2024, and then to the budget workshop in January as well. Item 4, as Craig mentioned, we had a meeting of all of the local municipal treasurers, something that we used to refer to as the Tax Policy Working Group, and that's kind of blended together with the Renfrew County Clerks and Treasurers Finance Subcommittee. So we meet on a biannual basis. Generally in the spring, our meeting is dominated by tax policy and the decisions that we need to make as an upper-tier municipality with respect to setting tax policy for the upcoming year, which really just takes our municipal budgets and allocates it amongst property classes and ratepayers. So we had a very good meeting discussing a number of items, 2024 budget challenges that we're seeing, as well as your own local municipalities. We spoke about asset management plans, about Ontario Regulation 588-17 and some of the deadlines that are before each of us in 2024 and our progress towards meeting those deadlines. We talked about asset retirement obligations, optional small on-farm business subclass, as well as we highlighted our progress to date with respect to development charges and what the county has done to date, and the decisions that will be before this council in the next number of coming months. So it was an excellent meeting. We've been meeting, just picking up on the whole concept of shared services, but we have been meeting as a tax policy working group for my entire term here at the County of Renfrew, for 25 years at least. And I think it's just an invaluable opportunity for us to share common issues, common solutions, common challenges, and if nothing else, there's that old saying about how misery loves company, and so if we've got some issues, chances are we've got other municipalities with the same issues, and just the fact that we're all in this together provides some comfort, at least it does to your treasurers as we meet regularly. But coming from those meetings are lots of positive ideas about solutions for the future. In the afternoon, as Craig mentioned, we took that opportunity, since the treasurers were here, to invite CAOs and other members of your senior management team at local municipalities to begin that broader discussion about not just in the finance area, but what are the other areas of our municipal business where we could look at sharing, whether it's information or policies, or sharing of services directly. And we have talked here in this committee about some of our initiatives with respect to human resources and the addition of one extra human resource coordinator, with the sole purpose of making that individual available to each municipality to provide that human resource expertise that we clearly understand is a challenge for every municipality to have of their own. And so to hire one and to share that amongst the 17 is a model that I think we can expand upon for some of our other services. Item number 5, Municipal Benefits Committee, and of course we had Anne-Marie Nevins here earlier as a delegation, just talking about the advantages of the Municipal Benefits Committee, our relationship with Cowan Benefit Consulting, and of course our benefits program, which is provided by Manulife. There is a meeting that is scheduled for later this month where that group will discuss premiums for the upcoming year. And I don't really want to let the cat out of the bag, but it's good news for us for 2024. At least the preliminary numbers that I've had a look at are such that the rates that are before us for our benefit package for our employees in 2024, I think this committee and all of County Council will be very pleased when they have a look at those rates. So there's an area that we may not have the same level of pressure in 2024 as we might have been challenged in other years. So that's good news for us and good news that we'll have to share with each municipality. But I won't let the cat out of the bag just yet. So. Well, what level of good news? We're not saying. Item number 6, then just really an update on our service awards recipients and retirees. And in 2022, following a number of years where we were not able to get together and celebrate years of service and our retirees because of COVID, the survey clearly indicated to us the feeling or the mood amongst our staff. We heard directly from County Council about the importance of recognizing staff in some way, shape, or form. And so we're very pleased to announce that on Thursday, November the 30th at Festival Hall in Pembroke, we are moving back to a gathering to celebrate our staff. It will be a bit of a unique format, and we have attached as Appendix 2 a detailed poster with a bit of a different format as opposed to a formal sit-down dinner. And some of the things, if you participated in the past, some of the format that we've had previously, really a departure to what we have done in the past, an opportunity for us as a larger group to celebrate all of our staff and the hard work and commitment that each one of them brings to the table on a daily basis. So you will see that we are recognizing 61 Service Award recipients who have attained between 20 and 40 years of service, as well as 16 retirees, and the complete list is attached as Appendix 3 to this package. Item 7 is something that's coming forward for your information. Earlier this week at the Health Committee, there was a resolution adopted to move forward with an agreement with Honeywell Limited for the replacement of hydronic controllers within the backnet controllers, an item that was approved within the 2023 capital budget for Miramichi Lodge. The budget was $160,000. This agreement is for a quoted price of $143,029, excluding HST. There is an issue with respect to a sole, a single source supplier, and that's with respect to the fact that Miramichi Lodge has been using the Honeywell products and systems for a number of years, and so this item is being recommended or has been recommended by the Health Committee to approve this purchase from Honeywell to work with our existing systems at Miramichi Lodge. And Madam Chair, that is the last of the information items.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll go back to information item number 1. Warden, please.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that we're not going to race forward with discussion on this yet until we have our November 9th meeting. And I would suggest respectfully that maybe consideration be given to holding a meeting in February after the budget is done to talk about this, because with the issues that are raised here, and I think some of the perception that we arbitrarily went out and just sought out projects in the Highway 17 corridor, when in fact there was some communication went out asking for identification at the local level where county infrastructure intersects with municipal infrastructure and growth pressures in the past, and we didn't get some responses back. So that might be something we want to consider in the interim, is going back out to say, look, now that you've had a chance to look at it and think about it, are there any growth pressures in your community? Because I think when you look through some of the responses, they talk subdivisions. We're not talking subdivisions per se. We are talking the fact that we do add a meter on each side for active transportation on most roadways that we redo, and there are county roadways in most municipalities. So is that a development charges issue? I see Greater Madawaska's comments about Highway 508 and 511, and they're experiencing pressures and our acknowledgement in those. And I've seen in the media some comments about crosswalks and sidewalks and other urbanized infrastructure that's increasingly getting into our rural communities, and some of those may have to be funded. So I think we need a little more information and more conversation on it, just to take away some of the cynicism or some of the suspicion that's crept into this conversation. So I would suggest, if might make sense to, after the budget's completed, after we do November 9th, to have a conversation about this, or shortly before the budget. Simply because I think we need more information and more time on it. And I think November 9th, as well as some of the conversations that have been had around our social housing stock, will necessitate a longer conversation on this and finance in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on 1? We'll move on to 2. Nothing there. Number 3, the 2024 budget. The budget that Jeff is reporting on that he won't be at. Look at his face. For our viewing audience, he's pretty pleased with himself. Number 4, the Fall Tax Policy Working Group. Again, that'll be Jeff's last meeting for that group. The municipal benefits that we had the delegation on. I look forward to the good news story that won't be coming from you, Jeff. The 2023 Service Awards. I am so pleased to see this back, and I'm glad that it was put back into our package because I had this event from 2 to 3 in the afternoon. So I've fixed that in my calendar. Yes, Warden.
Yeah, I'm really glad to see this,
Yeah.
and I like the format change, although I missed the idea of having roast beef. I think it's great to have a fun event with people in the room, and as you know, the poster indicates, there's going to be some entertainment, and it's nice to have a relaxed venue to do this. So what a great concept. Kudos to whatever person and or committee that evolved it. I think it's a perfect reintroduction and a nice start. And we need it for corporate morale. I think the morale is pretty good, but you can't stop always building on it. So thank you.
I think it's also good for county council morale.
Well, no, I have to figure out a way to make that work into the schedule. So my morale right now is a little stressed.
All right. Number 7, the hydronic distribution system upgrade. Oops. And at that, we will move on to bylaws. Mr.
Item number 8, I'll read the recommendation, is that the Finance and Administration Committee recommends to County Council the approval of the amended corporate policy for tangible capital assets, that is FIN-07, asset retirement obligations, and further, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 4-08, being a bylaw to establish corporate policies and procedures for tangible capital assets for the County of Renfrew be adopted.
Thank you. I'll ask for a mover and seconder to get it on the floor. Moved by the member from North Algona Wilberforce, seconded by the member from Deep River. Go ahead, Jeff.
In June of this year, Lori Huber, who was a partner with KPMG, our external auditors, was here to present the auditor's report the auditor's report based on the 2022 financial statements for the County of Renfrew. One of the items that she raised as an item of awareness for all of council was the fact that the Public Sector Accounting Board Standard 3280 will come into effect as at December the 31st of 2023, and that all municipalities have some obligations with respect to that standard. She left with us a document, and we've attached it as part of this particular report, although that's tiny printing if you have printed this piece of paper. But if you zoom in on that asset retirement obligation summary, you'll see that there's a number of phases to that project and a number of steps that each municipality would be responsible for, and then there are auditor obligations or milestones with respect to their review. Step number 1 is a development of a public sector, a PS 3280 compliant policy, including a definition for in-scope assets, productive and non-productive assets, essentially a policy document reflecting our responsibilities with respect to this standard. There are a number of other steps, such as moving forward with identification of tangible capital asset sites or inventory, developing an inventory of potential in-scope assets, and certainly KPMG has a responsibility then to tie those into our financial statements and our TCA listing and identifying the potential for in-scope assets. So we've done that. We've done step number 2. Step number 1 is attached as this particular policy, and good municipal practice is not always reinventing the wheel, so we thank the County of Peterborough for sharing their policy with us. They're a little bit ahead of the game on this one. And so we've modified that policy to work here for the County of Renfrew. So step number one in this process, we believe, with the approval of this policy by County Council at the end of the month, would be achieved. We've moved forward with step number two. We've actually estimated step number three, our liabilities with respect to asset retirement obligations, and we have identified a source, if you will, a standard costing for this that we are not quite confirmed with yet as far as KPMG is concerned. At our shared services meeting last week with your treasurers, we asked for other municipalities who have begun work on an ARO policy. Our concerns are specifically with respect to potential asbestos remediation costs in some of our buildings that have some age related to them. And so we have other municipalities with similar situations or issues. And so what KPMG is asking us for at present is a number of costing estimates to be able to use in our costing models to identify a potential liability with respect to ARO. So we have our own internal estimates, and so we are looking at getting 2 or 3 others, which will satisfy those requirements by KPMG for us to have a broader range of cost estimates to be applied to what we believe is our potential liability. And by doing so, we can book those estimated liabilities as part of our December 31st, 2023 financial statements, so that when KPMG comes to do their audit work after step number 4, we hope to have achieved their concurrence with our process, with our costing models, and with our liability estimates that will be reflected in our financial statements. So work is going along well, Madam Chair and committee, but the first step in that is ensuring that we have a policy in place, which is a requirement of this public sector standard 3280. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. The member from Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richards, please.
Thank you, Chair. If memory serves me right, was this the item that KPMG's interpretation was different than our previous auditor?
Through you, Chair. This is a brand new standard, and so previously our auditor was not dealing with this particular standard because it only applies to municipalities, to all public sector organizations who have a year ending in 2023. So I believe hospitals and school boards, everyone who had a March 31st, 2023 year end, they've already moved forward with this standard and recognized this liability. Municipalities are all December 31st, 23, so we are all facing this policy by year end. I believe the issue you're referring to between our current auditors and our previous auditors had to do with our recognition of federal Safe Start funds and whether or not that was how we recognize that within our financial statements, whether or not that was a reserve fund or whether or not that was a deferred obligation recognized otherwise. So not related to this particular standard, though.
Yeah, because what sticks in my mind is asbestos. And that was never dealt with prior to with the previous auditor. And when KPMG, I thought that was a big thing they brought in, that they were implementing this into the system.
And through you, Chair, but the only reason that it's an issue today is the standard only applies to municipalities effective the 2023 financial period. So 2022 and prior, none of us are impacted by this particular standard. It only comes into effect in 2023. So even though KPMG were our external auditors in 2022, they only made council aware of the fact that this policy is coming, that we need to do some work to be ready for this policy, and that these estimates for potential liabilities must be reflected in our 2023 financial statements. So as I mentioned, we've done the groundwork, we've done an inventory, our estimates of an inventory of potential liabilities. We've applied some costing models to that to give us a value of what our liabilities could be. We just need to be able to prove those estimates by using a number of other sources of data, and that will satisfy KPMG for this year's purposes. So we're moving along the way, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay, anything further on number 8? Then I will call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. Number 9, employment bylaw number 1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This recommendation is that the Finance Administration Committee recommends to County Council the approval of the following changes to Employment Bylaw 1, effective October the 1st, 2023, and those changes are, number 1, the student wage from $14.60 per hour to $15.60 per hour. That is for students under 18, as well as item number 2, a change from $15.50 to $16.55 per hour for students 18 and over, as outlined in Schedule A, and further that the revised bylaw number 1 be adopted.
May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by the member from Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richards, seconded by the member from Brudenell, Lindock, and Raglan. A little bit of background, but I think we all know what this is about.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And of course, on October the 1st, 2023, the Province of Ontario announced a change to the minimum wage requirements in Ontario, and our policy is set to reflect those changes, and we are aligning it with the effective date of October the 1st of 2023, which for our students will more than likely have an impact in 2024.
Discussion. All in favor? And number 10.
And finally, Madam Chair, a rather lengthy one. What I might do, if with your permission, is really just go into the background a little bit so that we have some understanding of what's coming forward, and then we've got this recommendation. So a number of policies we present to you for an update. I'll just really briefly go through them, each and every one. There are a couple of them that have some significant changes, but anyways, item number 1, or A, is policy A08. That is a criminal record check policy for all prospective County of Renfrew volunteers and RCHC contractors. That is to be formatted in our new accessible template, as well as updating this policy to align with changes in our A07 policy. That is a criminal reference check for prospective employees. Item 2, A12, photograph identification for employees. Again, really just updating it to be more in line with our operational practices, as well as ensuring that our templates, we are using an accessible format for those templates. So as we review every policy, we make the change to the templates to make sure that they are in accessible format. Item C, A13, termination and resignation. Again, updating this policy. Policy definitions are being updated, as well as we are aligning with current County of Renfrew practices. All of those policies, any changes that we're making to the wording of the policies are reflected in strikeout to remove language, or bold where we're inserting the language, and you'll see that the degree of change is in most of these policies is minor, and we are really just attempting to, as I said, align either definitions or align our current practices. A14 is retirement and early retirement. We are, again, moving to this new accessible template. We are updating the policy's retirement gift section to reflect the removal of an awards dinner. And as we talked about earlier, the policy really required that we recognized our staff through a dinner. And of course, this year's format is much different. And depending on the success of this year's format, we may have changes that continue. Item E is A15 is our Code of Ethical Conduct. We are updating this policy to add definitions for conflict of interest and updating our enforcement section of this policy again to align with what we see as current County of Renfrew practice. Item F, A18, personal use of social networking. Again, adding some definitions for clarity to this policy. Policy BO2, promotion, clarifying the process for promotion again in line with our current practice. Item BH, which is policy B3, establishment of new positions. Updating the language within this policy to reflect our actual practice and to reflect title changes of positions that have been referenced in this policy previously. BO7, policy for payroll, again reflecting actual County of Renfrew practice. BO8, which is uniform and safety footwear allowance. We are removing the collective agreement reference as policy coverage is limited to non-employees only within this policy. The two substantive changes are the last two policies that we are reviewing today. Policy EO1, hours of work and overtime, again, template being changed, and we are updating this policy to include the addition of 2 weeks of overtime for directors in lieu of overtime. That would be a change consistent with practices of other Eastern Ontario municipalities. Previously, our directors, like every other employee within the organization, would track overtime, if you will, and submit that on a regular basis in through payroll to have that, submit that overtime form to the CAO, and the CAO would forward that on, if approved, to payroll to update a maximum of 70 hours or 2 weeks. That would be the maximum allowance for any director to bank policy. Most of us, and certainly in my experience, by the end of February, I'm at that 70 hours. Year end and working papers and all those things usually are heavily weighted in the early part of the year. Our CAO is aware of what's going on in other municipalities and the practice elsewhere, and rather than having your directors track those hours by date and function, I think in Craig's experience, he's seeing that all of his directors are hitting those maximums pretty early in the year, and rather than shuffling a lot of papers and approving a lot of documents, I think his preference would be to move this on in a policy change as opposed to tracking all of those documents. And so that is the substantive change for policy EO1. And then finally, EO4, vacation. There is a change to this policy. We've looked at this one fairly recently with respect to our recruitment and retention efforts. One of the items that, one of the responses that we received, I think loud and clear, was that there was a group of employees from the 10 to 15 year range that were not seeing any change whatsoever in their vacation entitlements, I guess, where improvements were made upon hiring, and for our brand new employees and for some of our more senior employees, that particular group saw no change whatsoever. And so through some discussions with the CAO, we've used the same model that we did to recognize some of our more senior plus 15-year staff by adding one additional vacation day of service for each year of service from that 11 to 14-year period. And so that would be the substantive change that we are recommending today. And perhaps with that, some discussion before I read the recommendation.
Actually, I was going to get you to read the recommendation to get it on the floor, if you don't mind.
Will do. That makes sense.
I think
That makes sense.
I tried.
So, although it's lengthy, the recommendation is that the Finance and Administration Committee recommends to County Council the approval of the following amended corporate policies. Policy A08, criminal record check policy for all prospective County of Renfrew volunteers and RCHC contractors. Policy A12, photograph identification for employees. Policy A13, termination and resignation. Policy A14, retirement and early retirement. Policy A15, code of ethical conduct. Policy A18, personal use of social networking. Policy B02, promotion. Policy B03, establishment of new positions. Policy B07, payroll. Policy B08, uniform and safety footwear allowance. Policy E01, hours of work and overtime. And Policy E04, vacation policy effective January 1, 2024. And further, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 6303, being a bylaw to establish human resources, corporate policies and procedures for the County of Renfrew, be adopted.
Thank you. I'll ask for a mover and seconder to get it on the floor. Moved by the member from Amaston Bromley, seconded by the member from North Algona Wilberforce. Discussion. Warden, please.
Thank you. When I look at policy A12, which is the photo ID, it says except for long-term care homes and students. So students, I would get, just given their age and needing consent and wanting to protect them. I'm curious about long-term care. Is it something that I'm not aware of? Thank you.
Mr. Belmore.
It likely is something I'm not aware of.
Through you, Chair, to the Warden, the long-term care homes manufacture their own specific IDs that they not only identify that they're a county employee, but their positions within the home to make it easy for residents to identify staff members.
Thank you.
Anything further? I will call the question. All in favor? Excellent. That carries.
Showing that I read all this stuff.
I know. He was just showing off there. I need a mover and seconder for the report as a whole, please. Moved by the member from Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richards. Seconded by the member from Deep River. Any other discussion? All in favor? We'll go back to the agenda. Is there any new business? I see none. We do not have a closed meeting, correct? Oh, I'm sorry. Member from Amaston Bromley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While it is not in my municipality, I know that it has been, it's got a significant presence on the social media, the Taste of the Valley, the granddaddy, if you will, the Cobden Taste of the Valley is this Saturday.
Thank you for the reminder. Any other new business? No closed meeting. The date of our next meeting is Thursday, November 16th. And at that, I will ask for a mover and seconder to adjourn. The member from Amaston Bromley, seconded by the member from Brudenell, Lindock, and Raglan. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, committee.